What's going on YouTube? This is Max coming back at you once again with another video. This time I'm doing the 2022 Samsung QN800B review. Before I start, if you could do me a favor by hitting that like button and that subscribe button, I'd greatly appreciate it. Now that we got that out the way, let's go ahead and talk about the 800B. For people that want a quick review, yes, I recommend this TV, but not until the price goes down on the QN800B. At the time of this video, the price of the TV is going for 65-inch, $3,499.99, and the 75-inch is going for $4,699.99, and the 85-inch is going for $6,499.99. So if you want to stick around, I will go over the pros and cons to the QN800B. Still here? Okay, let's dive in. The QN800B is an 8K mini LED display. This is a step below its flagship TV QN900B. The QN800B is running the Neural AI Quantum Processor 8K. This processor is also the same as the QN900B. The only difference between each other, from what I can tell, is the local dimming zones. I can't confirm the amount of dimming zones on the QN800B, but according to ABS forums, it was mentioned that it's the same amount of zones than last year's version of the QN800A, which is just over 1,300 local dimming zones. The QN800B has an Infinity One design. It has a slimmed down version of the One Connect box. The One Connect box has 4 HDMI 2.1 inputs that has 4K 144Hz to 8K 60Hz. The QN800B depth is less than 1 inch thick, which is thicker than an OLED display. With the QN800B, Samsung has provided the One remote, which is solar power instead of battery. Now, let's talk about the positives. Everything that you see in this video, you're watching on the QN800B. I'm using a Sony ZV-1 camera. The picture is pretty amazing and the colors really do stand out on the QN800B. Watching HDR is mind-blowing when it comes to the QN800B brightness. The black bars are black and the majority of the content, the blacks are black. The picture has real depth where the object separates from the background. The gaming bar is also a great feature for when I play video games on my Xbox Series X and my PlayStation 5, and it's something that if you're a gamer, you'll absolutely love this feature on the Samsung TV. Now getting back to the picture quality, one thing that Samsung has blown me away is the HDR content. Now, this TV doesn't have Dolby Vision, but what I find it kind of interesting, going on the sound side, they do have Dolby Atmos, which to this day I don't understand. But getting back to the picture, it's really difficult and challenging to capture the brightness of a Samsung on my ZV-1 camera. So everything right here, just listen to my words of what I have to say. It is amazing. Now, if I do want to compare this to my current Sony A90J, I will say that when it comes to the HDR content, Samsung does have the upper hand when it comes to that brightness. However, I will say that Sony A90J does have more depth when it comes to their objects, and it has a lot more detail compared to the Samsung QN800B. So getting back to the blacks of the QN800B, what you're seeing right now is what I recorded off my Sony ZV-1 camera. And as I was looking at this in person, I did not see any type of blooming when I'm looking at the video, which is very amazing. But looking at the off angles, you do see that the colors will start to fade and it will start to get gray if you at a certain angle. This is something that was a little bit extreme, what you see right now, which you don't see it too much looking at this video right now. But on the next scene, that I have here is this is kind of like the most extreme cases where you see a little bit of a washed out picture when it comes to the QN800B, but it's nothing severe. So if people are watching TV at this type of angle, I don't think this is bad. I think it actually looks really good. So just want to give everyone kind of a heads up when it comes to this. It does kind of wash out on the side, but this is kind of like the extreme case. Now switching to the actual interface, the home interface of the Samsung. This for the QN800B and I believe the rest of the Samsung TVs for 2022, I believe is the UI is pretty clean. However, I do have an issue with the inputs on the Samsung and how to get to the inputs, because if you look at the one remote, it really doesn't have a input button. So if I need to switch from one HDMI to another one and back and forth, I would have to go through multiple menus to get to where I need to get to, which is a very huge problem to me. But switching to the picture settings, everything that you saw or what I recorded was on movie, except for the gaming portion of it where I was using the gaming hub as standard. But one thing I do want to point out in this review, and this is going to the negatives, is not only the input, but I have a severe issue with eARC. And this is something that is driving me nuts. So if you're a current subscriber or looked at my previous video, you know a lot of people will know that I have a Yamaha RX 888, and having it have the TV QN800B connected to the Yamaha receiver, I have some issues where the picture will go to black or the sound will switch from the receiver to the TV. Sometimes if I go to the Xbox, I would have to toggle back and forth with the Samsung settings, and same thing for the PlayStation 5, toggle back and forth with this PlayStation setting, just for it to start working again. So I'm going to do a separate video on that just to go over that in more detail. So I don't want this to be a whole ER issue, but I do want to say that as a negative on the Samsung TVs, and just want people to be aware of that. So let's talk about the other negative. The other negative is I have severe case of DSE, which you can see on my screen right now. So I just want to make people aware of that I do have it on my QN800B. And also I'm going to talk about some of the blooming. So the blooming is not as bad. You do see it when you go and select your settings. So what I have on some of the screen that you see right now, that's kind of like one of the worst case scenarios. And also too, if you have a really bright logo on certain areas, which I'm going to show in just a second, those where you also see as well. But when I am looking at caption or subtitles, I don't see it that much, or really not at all. It's kind of non-existent, which I think is great. But on severe cases, just like what I mentioned before, it's kind of like where you see the blooming. But all the other cases, if I'm watching content, watching movies with, especially you got the two black letter bars going up and down, I don't see blooming whatsoever, which is very good news. Even what I'm capturing right now, what you see on your screen, I did not see any blooming on this demo that I found on YouTube. So I'm just giving a heads up, is I do not see any type of blooming on this object. So I want people to really appreciate that Samsung has really stepped their game up with this. The only time that I was seeing it is just like what I mentioned before, is when it comes to the settings portion of it. But when you actually look at the content, what you're seeing right now, I do not see blooming on here, which is a huge positive on Samsung's side, and which is something that if you always have a fear of LED TVs, mini LED TVs when it comes to Samsung, I think Samsung has done a really good job for the 2022s. I can't speak to the previous year model, but I could tell you on the 2022 models, it looks really good. So going back to my recommendation, I mentioned in my earlier part of the video that I recommend the QN800B. I think it's a great TV, and I think yes, it's a recommendation. However, the reason why I said to wait is because of the price. I think it's a little bit too high at this time right now, and just to be competitive with other OLED TVs that are a lot cheaper, especially when you look at LG side, those are some of the competitors that I mentioned that just to wait when it comes to this. But if money was no object, QN800B I say is a good buy. Or if you have a different alternative, if you're really trying to save money, the QN90B I heard is a very good option, and there are lots of reviews on even the 85B that I heard a lot of great reviews from too, especially when it comes to Tech with KG and Keep It Classy has mentioned those TVs, which are really good. So the only difference when it comes to 4K and 8K, that's something for you to determine. Do you really need 8K right now? To be honest with you, I say no, because there's not a lot of 8K content out here. But also too, did I notice any picture quality difference? To be honest with you, no, I did not see a huge difference when it comes to picture quality difference between 4K and 8K. And my comparison that I could show you is the A90J, which is a 4K television, and the QN800B, which is a 8K television. Now, the Sony is great and the Samsung is great as well too. So just playing off of both of them, when it comes to 8K content specifically, I didn't see anything more sharper that I could see compared to the Sony. And I think that Sony has a little bit more detail when it comes to their content base compared to Samsung. So that's something for up to the users to decide, whoever thinking about buying that. I really don't see when it comes to that detail of a difference between 4K versus 8K. So that's just my opinion. So I'm about to go ahead and wrap this video, but if you want to know what I would rate the QN800B, I would rate it, if I had to think out of a scale 1 out of 10, I will say I would give this an 8 out of 10. And the reason why I'm not giving this a higher score is just like how I mentioned before, I really have an issue with the e-arc, and people may say something in the comments, but it is really an issue in my opinion, especially where I have to toggle with the settings going back and forth, especially when I'm watching content and playing games. So that's kind of like one thing. And then the other issue that I have is, here is the DSE, which I just showed, and some of the blooming when it comes to that portion of it. But besides, other than that, think the picture is great. I think especially with the features that Samsung has provided, I think it's a great TV. So that's why I gave it an 8 out of 10. But if you could do me a favor by hitting that like button and that subscribe button, I greatly appreciate it. And if you have any questions specifically about the A800B or the Sony A90J, just let me know, and I'll do the best I can to answer any comments. And in future videos, I am going to be doing some more comparison videos between the QN800B and the Sony A90J. So please be aware and keep track when I start posting those videos. And also, I'm going to show a more of a detailed tutorial of the e-arc issue that I'm running into, showing some demos of some of the issues that I'm running into. So I'm about to go ahead and end the video, and see everyone on the next video. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.